Sefer Yisroel Saba, the first chapter, story of my drawing close to breslov. Rabbi Yisrael sings with an arousing melody. The day is coming, which will not be either day or night. It is a wondrous and awesome story for anyone who will look closely at it. Thus, I thought it would be fitting and very important to relate and write down all that happened to me from the time I reached awareness. For from the time I became an aware individual until I merited to come close to Rבינו was all one process. That time was the beginning, and now is the continuation. God graced me with such a soul that from the earliest time I can remember, when I was still a small child, my heart burned intensely to serve God, to merit the fear of heaven, faith, and all, in short, to everything, to love God and to fear Him. My primary longing and all my desire was to purify myself of all my worldly passions and only to serve God, even though I was a small child, not knowing anything. But my soul yearned powerfully with desires for self-sacrifice, and my heart pined only to serve God and not to be involved with some sort of trade or work. I remember everything. I still remember being a small child. All my life I had been a poor child. We did not have enough to eat, neither on the festivals or on Shabbos. We did not have meat. Shabbos without meat. We had fish, and it was on those fish that we survived. My mother knew how to cook, and her dishes were tastier than the highest quality meals. And the house was filled with joy. My father was exceedingly poor all his life, and then, at the age of 40, he became blind in both eyes. My mother accepted this in love, and I was still a child, a small child. Oy vey, master of the world. And I had longings to mortify my soul when still at the age of 7 or 8, and to fast on the eve of Rosh Chodesh, in the month of Elul, and during the days of penitence. For example, on the eve of Rosh Chodesh, I wanted to fast, and my mother was very conventional, and she was very distressed. What are you doing? You're still a small child, and you want to fast? But I refused to listen to her, and fasted every eve of Rosh Chodesh for half a day, but in the month of Elul, all day, and I caused a great deal of anguish to my mother from this. In any case, my struggles grew more and more, for it is known that before every achievement in holiness, the forces of evil rise to block the way. On one hand, I powerfully resisted the temptations of this world, and on the other, I had fear of heaven and despised my life, feeling great bitterness. So I searched for God-fearing people of truth, amongst the Hasidim in whose circles I grew up, hoping to find peace for my soul, for I still knew nothing of Rabbi Nachman. Even though I belonged to a specific Hasidic group, still I thought, perhaps I'll find in some other place. I'm attached only to God, the place where I will see that it has an effect on me that fills me with the light of God. I was in pain and great anguish. I searched for a solution how to save myself and could not find one. Oy, oy. So I searched in all sorts of branches of Hasidim and amongst God-fearing people. For example, there was in Tveria one man famous to this day, whose name was Rav Hirsch, Rav Tzvi Litvak Rosenthal. He had been a student of the Chofetz Chaim, and he was the pride of the whole city, and also was the pride of the yeshiva. He was God-fearing and learned many books of Musar. For example, he would learn the book Reishis Chachma with great discipline for several hours each day in a standing position, and he knew it all by heart. I saw this and was impressed by it, and I had a great respect for him. Rav Hirsch. He learned so much from Reishis Chachma. I searched for a place to direct me and infuse me with fear of heaven and faith. So I attached myself to him, and he became my Rebbe, free of charge. I pleaded with him, and he had mercy on me and learned Reishis Chachma and the Zohar with me. And he spoke to me personally in order to engender in me fear of heaven and faith. And we had a strong connection. Also alone, I had my special moments, for I searched very intensely for true service of God. As for his Boidedis, I still knew nothing. I saw in the book Reishis Chachma and the other Musa books the great power of prayer. Certainly I prayed to God. However, I knew nothing of his Boidedis. I only knew that prayer was a very lofty matter. So I recited a lot of psalms, and I prayed the 3 daily prayers with great concentration, attachment, and fear of heaven. And I, from the time I first became aware, while still a small child, though I still could not even say the psalms, still my heart burned for God, and I greatly and I greatly desired. I deeply loved Torah learning, mitzvahs, and faith. My heart longed to serve God, to learn the Torah, and to give myself over to serving God. And I prayed with intense devotion, enthusiasm, and animated gestures. I was accustomed to pray in a synagogue neighboring our house. There was one chassid there, a very elderly man who received a great deal of respect and importance, an upright man who loved the God-fearing. He saw how my praying was different from all the other children. He saw that I prayed with intention, devotion, with truth and simplicity. Thus, I found favor in his eyes. He was from among the Hasidim who did not pray forcefully or loudly, only in a whisper. But in spite of this, I had brazenness and paid them no mind. So this elderly man came to me every day and gave me a valuable coin. He was well known in the town for being miserly, always giving the smallest possible coin for charity. But to me he gave. When I came home, being that my parents were poor, I gave them the coin. They were amazed. But after that, I stopped giving to them and began saving the coins for a prayer book. I wanted a prayer book including Tikkun Chatzois and Psalms, plus all the various slichas and mamodos, all the requests and prayers, in short, a treasury with all the prayers existing in the world, every supplication or plea. So I had a great longing for such a prayer book, and I was receiving a valuable coin every day. So I saved up all the coins for the prayer book. However, in Tveria, one could not find such a book. The prayer books in Tveria were only the standard one for children. The kind that I wanted could only be found in Yerushalayim. Then God had mercy on me, and it happened that my mother needed to travel to Yerushalayim for a wedding. When she was ready to leave, I said to her, I saved up money for a deluxe prayer book. I was very cherished by my mother, and she promised me that she would buy me the type of prayer book I wanted, a treasury with all the added features. I gave her the money, and she bought it. She made an effort to inquire from one of our relatives who knew all the major dealers. A prayer book like this cannot be found just anywhere. In any case, she brought me a prayer book that was a novelty even in Yerushalayim. She came to Tveria with the book, my happiness. And I went to synagogue with this prayer book, and everyone was jealous. Everyone who saw it said, wow, a prayer book like that? Who can merit to have such a prayer book? What joy I had every time I saw the book by me. I wanted to eat it. There are a number of stories to tell. In any case, I had a powerful desire to wake up at midnight, to recite a lot of psalms, and to pray. I had heavy battles in this area, and I searched for refuge, but could not find healing for my soul. I remember that in Tveria the climate was very hot. It was so hot in the day that also at night it was very hot, for the rocks heated up from the sun. The whole town would sleep on the roofs. I slept as well, but I liked to rise 2 to 3 hours before sunrise. I would get up and come down from the roof into the house. The house was without windows. It was like a cave, intensely hot, and I was almost as one immersing oneself in a mikveh with his clothes on, from the abundance of sweat. So I endured this, and I would exit the house barely able to breathe. I would climb up some stairs next to the roof. After midnight the air was somewhat cooler, and that was the prime time for sleeping. Also the time one felt the most vitality. I would feel such life, coolness, air. Then I would descend into our room. We had a small light, and I lighted it, and I would say psalms and start to pray. Then my father saw that I was causing trouble, for in the course of a week I burned the lights several hours. They had a bottle of gas that was supposed to last from Shabbos to Shabbos. Every Sunday they would buy a new bottle, and now, when Shabbos arrived, there was already no gas. They said, "Oh, yisroel gives us such trouble. He uses up all the gas, and we don't have enough to finish the week. Oy, oy, oy." Among the Hasidim, there was one very elderly man. He was a learned scholar with fear of heaven and knowledge of Kabbalah. I involved myself with him, that he should draw me closer to God. He listened to all my words, and he was amazed. How can it be? There are other talented children with Torah learning and who are God-fearing, and one does not hear from any of them that they suffer so from the evil inclination. In any case, he received me with love. He lived somewhat far from the synagogue, and he was the last to leave after the evening prayer. Almost every night I accompanied him, walking very slowly until we reached his house, and on the way I told him of all my suffering, all that I was enduring. He wanted to help me. He spoke with me of faith. It certainly helped me, but that he would take the pain from me and illuminate me with the kind of light I was needing, this he could not do. In any case, I had several guides, people with faith, who taught me until I reached my bar mitzvah. After my bar mitzvah, one elderly chassid brought me close to him, Toward the end of his life, he became a Torah leader in Yerushalayim, Admor. He taught me Zohar, Gemara, and Mishnah, and he was a Rebbe to me. I spent much time in his house, and I saw that he devoted every moment to learning the Torah. He had fear of God with refined character traits. I regarded him as a godly angel. I was searching for the quality of self-sacrifice, and I confided to several people all my sins, all I had been through. For I wanted to get out of the mud. I wanted to change. So I thought, I'll reveal the disease. Then they will know better how to help me. In any case, I endured what I endured more and more and more until I reached the age of 17. And then God began to work miracles and wonders with me. I saw the providence of the blessed Lord, that he had mercy on me and helped me at every point. I had heard of all the varieties of Hasidus. Only breslov I had never heard of. But God knows one's thoughts and heart. He saw how I abandoned and humiliated myself before people. When I found an aged man with fear of heaven, I would pour out my heart to him, hoping he would lift me out of the darkness and the passions. God saw my heart, and he wanted to do me the kindness of drawing me to Rabbi Nachman. But how? I did not even know such a thing as breslov existed. How would I come close to Rabbi Nachman? Oy vey, it would be impossible to describe in full detail, but I will begin to relate what I went through, how God had mercy on me and arranged that I should merit to draw close to Rabbeinu. I learned at the yeshiva that rests upon the grave of Rabbi Meir Balanes in Tveria. It stands between the fields and the hills. I love to go out and wander through the hills and fields. Even before I came close to Rabbeinu, when I reached the age of 17, I was having very difficult battles with the evil inclination. What was I to do? I still did not know about Rabbi Nachman. God arranged that I should exit the building and enter the courtyard to have a cup of tea. In the courtyard stood a garbage receptacle, and within I saw Shemois, which is a discarded Torah teachings that require honorable burial. It was an old book without a cover, without a front or a back cover. Shemois. Well, I had fear of heaven, so in order to spare the book from humiliation, I picked it up in order to throw it into the geniza in the yeshiva. Before I threw it into the geniza, I happened to notice that the name of the book was Hishtapchis HaNefesh, outpouring of the soul. Hishtapchis HaNefesh, that name made an impression on me. I had yearnings to pour out my soul to God, so perhaps this would be good for me. Also, I was accustomed to reading many books of Musar and Chassidus, but I had not seen a book like this with the name Hishtapchis HaNefesh. I thought to myself, perhaps this will be good for me. Perhaps God had sent this to me intentionally, so that I would have this book. So I started to read. I read one page and immediately saw that it was very good for me, that it had been intended for me. I saw that it was a kindness from God that I merited to find this book. For every word was for me, that I should succeed in winning the wars against all that I was suffering. So I did not throw the book into the geniza. I took it and snuck out of the yeshiva to the fields and hills and started to read the book. So after finding the book, I would go out with it to do his boidedis and prayed according to the teachings of Rabbi Nachman on how to do his boidedis and how to pray. I went out to the fields and no one knew. It was like stealing away. I would escape to the fields and do his boidedis. I would escape to the fields and do his boidedis and read from the book, fulfilling what was written there. I saw for the first time in my life the power within the book, the power of his boidedis. It kills all the destructive forces, all the damaging forces, all kinds of evil diseases, all kinds of evil deeds, all kinds of lusts. I saw with my own eyes that after his boidedis, upon returning to the yeshiva, I was a new man. I thought to myself, where are all the corrupting forces? They've all been killed. Until then, because I wanted to save myself from the evil inclination, I had searched and searched and searched. And though I had experienced some salvations, but a salvation like this, to conquer all one's wars with ease, this I had never experienced. I would read 1 or 2 pages and immediately fulfill what was written there. And I witnessed wonders, the likes of which I had not seen all my life. I had searched in books and had found salvations, but something like this, to see such wonders within the words of this book, this I had never experienced. So I learned very much from the book with enthusiasm, but I did not know who was the author, for it was a discarded book. I guarded the book like a treasure. I closed it up in a trunk, and every day I had this custom. I would do as boidedis. I would go out with the book to the fields and read, immediately fulfilling what I read. I saw such wonders transcending the laws of nature. I saw great wonders I had never witnessed before, miracles and wonders the likes of which I had not seen since as far back as I can remember, and I did not know who authored the book. One time, I was sitting in bed and reading the book. A friend from within my Hasidic movement came upon me and saw that I was reading with enthusiasm, sobriety, love, and great arousal from the book. Then he saw that the book was a shtab chesanefesh, and he knew it was from the books of breslov. So the friend said to me, "What are you doing? You're reading from that book? It's forbidden to read that book. It's from the books of breslov." But I had already tasted from the book and had seen wonders, so I was shocked and became very angry, entered into a fury and said to him, "It's none of your business, you sinner. A book like this you say is forbidden to read? You don't know what there is in the world. This book is holy of holies, and I see amazing wonders from it." Then he said to me, "Animal, you're an animal, not a person. You don't know anything about what is in the world. This is from the books of breslov. It's forbidden to read them. All the Torah leaders and all the Torah world are against breslov and say it's forbidden to read from the books of breslov." That was the first time in my life I heard that there was such a thing called breslov in the world, and that it was forbidden to read from books related to it. So I said to him, "I don't listen to the world, to the rabbis. Let them all come here, all the rabbis and all the kings. I won't listen to any of them. This book is good for me. I saw wonders which are impossible to describe." Then he said to me, "You're full of arrogance, impudent in the face of all the rabbis. So you're not a civilized man." I said to him, "For me, this is good." Then he said to me, "That's my book, and I want it. I don't need it. I only want that you should not be able to read it. I want the book." I did not want to give it to him. I said to him, "I took this book from abandoned property. I found it in the garbage." Then he hit me, saying, "You are shameless against all the leaders, against all our rabbis. They all say it's forbidden to read books of breslov, and you still want to read." I did not want to give him the book under any circumstances, but he was stronger than me, and he forced the book away from me and walked away. I was left like an orphan, without the book. However, I had a profit from the encounter. I had heard there was a Hasidic movement in the world with the name breslov, and that it is forbidden to read the books associated with it. I had already read the book several times and had tasted the taste. So, from what I could remember, I continued to go into the fields and prayed and called out to God to have mercy on me, as he had already begun to help me, bringing me to find this book, and I knew the effect it had on me. I asked that God should send me more breslov books and Hasidim. I wanted to be a breslov chassid. The meeting with yisroel Kaduna. I lived in Tveria and never left the place. Tzfas was close to Tveria, and everyone would travel to Miron in the month of Elul and on Lag BaOmer. But I was poor. I did not have money, and thus I did not travel to Tzfas. If I had been accustomed to going to Tzfas, perhaps I would have heard about breslov Hasidim. I thought to myself, perhaps there is somewhere in the world a community of breslov Hasidim, perhaps in Yerushalayim. I asked and prayed to God. After a long time had passed, God accepted my prayer and sent Rabbi yisroel Kaduna to me to Tveria. I suffered, and God did wonders with me. Sublime kindness. My teacher, Rabbi yisroel Kaduna, lived in Tzfas, and he as a prodigy unparalleled in the world. I grew up among major Hasidim who were very strict and exacting in religious observance. But upon seeing this man, I realized that all of them were outside, knowing nothing of faith, of the Torah, of God. They were all learned, but I saw that compared to him, he was a unique phenomenon in the world, without comparison. But I had not met him and had not heard of him. He lived in Miron and did not want to budge from there. He served God there alone. Not another soul was present. He had the key to the synagogue of Rabbi Shimon Bar, and he exited there in isolation, and he existed there in isolation. He also went to the mountains to do his bodhidus and to pray, and he devoted himself to serving God with self-sacrifice. His family lived in Tzfas, and he would spend the entire week in Miron. Every Friday, he traveled from Miron to Tzfas. God wanted Rabbi Yisroel to come to Tveria, to Yisroel there, but Rabbi Yisroel would not leave Miron. Even if he were given all the money in the world, leave Miron? To leave such a holy place and go to Tveria? For what purpose? Of all the places in the world, Meron was the only place. Who would have thought that Rabbi Yisroel would go to Tveria? God knew that Rabbi Yisroel would not leave Meron. So what did he do? He sent him sickness in his hand, and the pain grew from day to day, from hour to hour, pains that left him unable to say one word. He could not pray or do any work. He did not believe that anything was by chance. Everything was according to divine guidance. So when he saw this situation, he began to think that perhaps it was the will of God that he should go to Tveria. In Tveria, the weather is warmer than in Meron and Tzfas. He might not be fully well there, but the pains would not be so intense. And he could pray and serve God. But even in spite of the driving pains, he still had doubts whether to leave Reb Shimon and go to Tveria or not. For he thought to himself, how can it be that just when a person is in great suffering, that he should abandon Reb Shimon Ba'Ichoi for Tveria? On the contrary, one ought to flee to Reb Shimon, to pray and beg for healing. So as long as he did not know with certainty that God wanted him to go to Tveria, he stayed on in Meron. When he reached an answer with certainty, he would go immediately. But he still did not know. So he did a lot of his bodhitas and asked very much of God that he reveal within his thought and intellect what to do. If it is the will of God that I go to Tveria, I'll travel there immediately. I only want to know the will of God, yes or no. He prayed so profusely until God opened his eyes and brought things to pass to let him know clearly that it was his will that he travel to Tveria. That was on Wednesday. Thursday, Rabbi Yisroel rose early in the morning, went to a mule driver, and hired a mule for Tveria. He could have waited until Sunday, after Shabbos, but because he knew with certainty that it was God's will that he should go, he left Tzfas immediately. My parents were poor, and they ground coffee for a living. But during the war, there was no coffee, and we were left without a living. My mother told her nephew, Binyamin Barzel, of our plight, and he suggested that she bake bread. She asked him, how will I get flour? He said, I will tell the vendor to give you as much flour as you need, and so it was. We started to bake bread on Sunday, and Rabbi Yisroel arrived in Tveria on Thursday of the same week. As soon as he dismounted from the mule, he needed a loaf of bread to eat the evening meal. That was when he met Binyamin Barzel and asked him where he could buy a loaf of bread. Binyamin knew that our family had begun to bake bread in order to sell, so he brought Rabbi Yisroel to us. We were 5 brothers in my house, and nearly all of them were older than me. It happened through providence that I took the loaf of bread and handed it to Rabbi Yisroel. As soon as I saw him, I was stunned by his appearance and his speech. I had never seen such a person, the holy grace of his face and his every word. I was astonished and very moved. I thought, perhaps this was planned by God, and I prayed, saying, perhaps this man will be good for me, perhaps my redemption will come from him. Then I thought, this man is a hidden tzaddik. I will find from him what I've been searching for, faith and fear of heaven. But I thought, how will I be able to have a connection with him? I thought he must be one of the 36 hidden tzaddikim. A hidden tzaddik can travel instantly from place to place. Tomorrow he might materialize in Yerushalayim, and I would not know what became of him. As I was thinking in this way, he put his hand in his pocket and brought out money to pay me for the bread and said, perhaps it would be possible for me to eat the bread here in the house. Then I sensed that he knew what I was thinking and desiring. I was wondering how we would have a connection, and then he asked, perhaps I could eat with your family here in the house. However, I saw that this was a distant possibility. My father would not agree to it. Not because he did not want it, but because it was already Thursday night, and we still needed to prepare the challahs, bake bread, and get to sleep in order to wake up early the next day. Also, the house was small, and there was not even room enough for us to eat. Also, my parents were poor, my father was blind, and the house was like the cave wherein Reb Shimon hid. There was no place to sit. I thought my father will rebuke and embarrass me. Why do you even think to ask such a question? And I cannot invite a guest without my father's permission. But because I wanted the connection with Rabbi Yisroel, I girded myself with all my might, thinking, come what may, even if he will hit and humiliate me, I will ask my father. Come what may, I will ask him. So I asked, Father, here is the money for the bread, and this man asked, he would like to eat with us in the house. Then my father answered, yes, of course. There is still some food left over from the meal, lentils and rice. Give it to him. Should he eat only plain bread? When my father gave his assent, his consent, his assent. When my father gave his assent, I saw that this was a redemption for me, divine intention beyond the natural order, that I should have a connection with this holy tzaddik. I saw the godly desire from every angle, sublime providence and heavenly kindness. So it was. My family said the blessing after the meal, recited the Shema, and went to bed on the floor, and Rabbi Yisroel and I were left alone. He sat next to the door on some steps. I gave him bread to eat, and he ritually washed his hands and made the blessing on bread. When I heard the blessings he made on the hand washing and on the bread, with such awe and union with God, I saw that it was true. This was a holy tzaddik, a hidden tzaddik. For his words were charged with holiness, like a meditation, like a prayer. The way we are speaking now, he spoke in this way to God. It was a wondrous sight. I grew up amongst Chassidim, amongst Torah scholars and those who feared God. But a blessing like this I had never heard. Also a face and an image like this, I had never seen the likes of it. Then I gave him what remained from our meal for him to eat, but he said to me, I don't eat anything except for bread and tea without sugar. But we did not have tea nor a gas burner. Only the rich had gas burners. The poor people used charcoal ovens, but charcoal fires demand experience to kindle. So it took me some time until I succeeded in starting a fire and making tea. I did not know he was a breslover. I only knew he was a hidden tzaddik. I could not hold myself back, and in the midst of kindling the fire, I kept approaching him and whispering in his ear, Rabbi Yisroel, you should know that you came to Tveria for me, for I am in a very difficult condition. The evil inclination overwhelms me and more. I passionately want to serve God in truth, and I endure heavy struggles. I've been looking all my life for someone to teach me and enlighten me with the light of God, that I should merit to serve God in truth. So I am certain that God sent you to Tveria, that you came here for me. So I beg you, don't leave me. He heard all this, and I saw that he was very moved, for he saw clearly that it was God's will that he should come to Tveria, because as soon as he dismounted from the mule, he had come straight to my house and heard these words. He should have come even earlier to Tveria, but as long as he had not been certain that he must go there, he had not been willing to leave Miron and had been in doubt. Now he saw that it was God's desire that he leave Miron. Also, when I saw Rabbi Yisroel, with my own eyes I saw what is breslov. I saw his prayers, his divine service, and his Shabbos, his holy words, his desires, and all that he suffered for my sake. He came to Tveria and found Yisroel bare, and so he forgot. He had a family in Tzfas and forgot Miron, casting all aside for me. And from that night we created such a bond, an awesome novelty. Oy vey, what transpired, such a story, a unique wonder without parallel. Oy vey, what transpired, such a story, a unique wonder without parallel. After that we went outside, and he said he wanted to go to some synagogue in order to recite the Chatzos, say psalms, and pray and meditate. So I went with him to the synagogue, and on the way I described my situation, and he listened to it all. I wanted to make confession before him, but he did not want to hear, saying it was forbidden. I should only speak in general terms. So I spoke with him weeping, for I sensed that he possessed healings for me, and I begged that he not leave me and return to Miron. I went with him from one synagogue to another, but all of them were closed, and I did not know where to find a key for any of them. Then it occurred to me that there was one synagogue that had belonged to the Chassidim of the Baal Shem Tov 100 years ago, from the period of the students of the Baal Shem Tov of Rome Kaliske. And the grandfather of Rav Nachman Radenker, after whom Rav Nachman was named, and all the other holy tzaddikim, they built the synagogue, making an effort to have it located near the sea, so that they could ritually immerse and pray when they liked. But in the winter, when there was an intense and particularly rainy winter, the waters would rise high and enter inside the synagogue, up to half the height of the tables, making it impossible to pray. So they took the books and everything else, leaving only the tables in the synagogue. Then the synagogue was left deserted until Nisan, when the waters receded. So we went into that synagogue, into the sea, and climbed onto a table and learned Torah 7 in the second volume of the B'kitzur Moran, for a merciful one will lead them. We learnt this lesson all night, and I experienced a taste of the Torah, of fear of heaven, like of which I had never felt before. We were in the synagogue all night, and I felt no need to sleep at all. Rabbi Yisroel was wealthy, He had candles and matches, which at the time were very expensive. He lit a candle and we studied the Kitamran until close to the morning, until I heard my mother crying. She cried profusely, as if over one who had passed away. My son, my son, my son. She saw that it was already close to dawn, and I had still not returned, and I still had not returned, so she thought, who knows what has happened? She went from one synagogue to another, searching for me with bitter sobs, without finding me. The synagogues were all closed, so she cried a great deal, and her voice was heard throughout the town. Tveria was a small town, and everyone gathered together. They thought that someone had passed away. The neighbors from the area came in the morning and asked, why the cries and screams? What happened? So she explained to them, some man came and bought bread from us. He ate the bread in our house, and then he took Yisroel Bear, and they wandered together all night, and he disappeared. I rose for work, and Yisroel Bear wasn't here. They did not know who this could be. It was at the beginning of the war, and the Turks were barbaric. As soon as they saw someone with hands and feet, they would snatch him into the army. So she thought, perhaps he has hands and feet. Perhaps they took him to the army. She sobbed, and all the town was in an uproar. I heard it, so I said to Rabbi Yisrael, Oivei, it's already after midnight, and my mother is searching, asking for me. So I left the synagogue, went to my mother and said to her, why all the crying? She replied, what have you done? Where were you all night? In any case, you know we need to throw out all the dough, all the challah, and all the bread. And that night caused a great commotion in Tveria. That night, Yisroel Bear became a breslover. In the morning, when I went to synagogue to pray, Rav Yisroel was in the synagogue. I spoke to him and we learned books of Rav Nachman, Gemara, Shulchan Aruch, the codifiers. It caused a great uproar in Tveria, and I gained a reputation of having become a breslover. Well, I endured conflict, a major war. My father and mother, my relatives, and the whole yeshiva, they all said, Oy vey, heaven have mercy, Yisroel Bear has become a breslover, a breslover. Everyone opposed me. They left the yeshiva and went to their parents, telling them, did you know? Yisroel Bear became a breslover. My father and mother heard, but were not that concerned. So the caretaker of the yeshiva and other people of status, scholars and well-known figures with respected names, came to my father and said, did you know? Yisroel Bear has become a breslover. So my father said, I'm not worried. I know my son. He has fear of heaven. He fulfills honoring one's parents more than anyone in the world. Even if I were to send him into the fire, he would go. There is no one who can compare to him. I'm not worried. When he comes home from the yeshiva, I will tell him I don't want it. So he won't be a breslover. It won't be a problem. So they said, you don't know what breslov is. He won't listen to you. You will have a heavy battle. He answered, I'm not worried. I know my son. I came home from yeshiva on Thursday, and my father said, son, you know that the heads of the yeshiva were here, and they said, you have become breslov. Son, have mercy on me. I asked you not to torment me. You're connected to another branch of Hasidim. I give you permission to choose any Hasidic group you like. I only have one request. I don't want you to be breslov. That was the first time I transgressed the commandment of honoring one's father. I said to him, Father, you know me. I fulfill honoring one's parents. I'm ready to obey you in every matter, except for this one. About this, I won't listen to you. Why? I don't know. Then he realized, aha, they were right. They said that I don't know what is breslov. What is going on? All his life he fulfilled honoring his father with self-sacrifice, and now he says this. This is the first time in my life that you are not willing to follow my will. Then he said, I don't want you to be breslov under any circumstances. I want you to be like the rest of the world. Oy, oy, what more happened? How can I explain? All of Tveria cried for me. My father and mother cried. What has happened to him? What is this? It's not possible to be another type of chassid beside breslov. What is this? We don't want breslov. My father, mother, and family said, this cannot be. It's just witchcraft. Breslov is witchcraft. Thus it was with everyone, all the scholars, and everyone cried, breslov, breslov, breslov. Yisroel Kaduna said to my mother, this is something that is impossible to annul. Yisroel Bear will be breslov forever. That is what will be. My mother heard what he said. She collapsed and died from the magnitude of the fear and the crisis. She died in Rav Yisroel's house. She had heard that no force from anywhere in the world would be able to help. I had said I will be breslov all my life. Then a miracle occurred. One of the burial teams noticed that my mother made a small movement with her eye, and she showed signs of life. He saw that the eye had life in it, but he thought, this is only my imagination. Then someone else came and saw the same thing, that my mother had made a small movement with her eyes. So, on the basis of two witnesses, one can rely. The neighbor said that she could not still be alive. The heart had ceased to beat, and everyone saw that she had died. But she said, "No, I'm not dead." Meanwhile, all the Hasidim and the whole city was boiling. Who had the courage to speak to a breslov chassid or to read from a breslov a book? It was frightening. Why should someone start getting involved with this? It is not his business. And thank God I did not pay attention, not to the major rabbis, not to the matter of finding a wife. I gave up everything except for what I saw of the greatness of Rabbi Yisroel Kaduna. Until this day, I still have the reputation. 80 years have already passed since I drew close to Rabbi Yisroel, and everyone opposed me so fiercely. Thank God I accepted all the bullets, all the embarrassment, and all the suffering with love, with great endurance, and everyone was won over by this. They saw my determination. It was beyond the natural order. They could not understand it. I saw in what I learned, if he were to say breslov, no, I would have had to leave it. But I saw Rabbi Yisroel. From the very first time I saw him, without knowing who he was, I said to myself, oy vey, this is a hidden tzaddik, and like some I would merit to serve God in truth as I would like. We endured what we suffered. The main point is how God arranged things, how I merited to know from Rav Nachman. At first, I did not know from Rav Nachman, or from the name Breslov. God led me to know about books of Breslov, that it is supposedly forbidden to read them. I was a poor child, very depressed, and also not talented. I did not have a mind for learning. In any case, since that night until today, I have held on, thank God. All the important people, all the rabbis laughed at me. He's Breslov. But I laughed at them, and I prevailed over everyone. I remained, and I will continue to remain on this path. But God gives me the gift to still be alive in this world. Chapter part Simplicity in Serving God. I am recounting all this so that you will know how much God loves simplicity. I was not a scholar, but I had simplicity in my heart. I loved the Torah, the commandments, faith, and fear of heaven. From the time I came of age, at this age of 16, I loved the Torah, fear of heaven, and faith. But I suffered great bitterness. I suffered intensely from the evil inclination. The evil inclination wants only this world, all the lower desires. I had fear of heaven and loved the Torah very much. When I saw a person who knew how to learn from books, and he would speak about shallow things and waste his time, I would say, what? He's crazy. If I could read from books, I would not rest. I would not waste 1 minute. When I saw someone learning with simplicity and saying psalms, I thought, aha, here's a man who thinks about the true purpose. This man, happy is he. He recites psalms and learns. He recites psalms and learns. I prayed with more enthusiasm than any of the other children. All the children prayed, but I counted the words as one counts money, with love and simplicity. Also, from the time I was a small child, I loved to scream the prayers, and I saw that before praying with screams, they would drink tea or coffee. So I started to drink more than anyone and screamed more than anyone. After that, I saw that it was possible to live without tea or coffee. What I merited, what I saw from Rabbi Yisroel, I saw that he did not need tea. He rose at midnight without tea and without coffee. So, until my bar mitzvah, I looked only to learn and fulfill the commandments, and for fear of heaven and truth and faith. Afterwards, my family and friends came to me and tried to influence me. They spoke to me when I became bar mitzvah, saying I needed to learn some trade, a tailor or shoemaker. And I said, no, I don't want to learn a trade. I want only Torah and fear of heaven. So they said to me, you need a livelihood, and you are a child. Your father cannot give you gifts and money, and also you need to support your family. So I said, I don't want to learn any trade. I was very stubborn and did not learn a trade. So they asked me, from where will your livelihood come? The yeshiva will not sustain you. You can't become a rabbi. You don't have the aptitude. So I answered, bread and water, that God will give to me. Then they said to me, all right, you want to exist on bread and water, fine. But a wife and children, what about them? I replied, I hope that God will grant me such a wife who is also satisfied with bread and water. Afterwards, when I merited to come close to Rabbi Yisroel and I told him the story, I saw that he was very pleased with this, for until then, I had not known about breslov. It was just that my heart had burned so much for love of the Torah, and he said to me, you did well not to learn a trade. You did well not to learn a trade. Also, I remember when I was several years old, I became very sick and had a battle with the angel of death. I felt like I was near to dying. I was very sick and became very weak. Someone who was sick needs to be given something to grant him vitality, milk. But my mother gave me milk with water. I said, give me milk. But she did not have milk. So I said to her, you give me milk with water. I want only milk. So she said to me, you're already big. Aren't you embarrassed? What is with you? I started to cry. I want milk. In any case, afterwards I became better. So I said to my mother, I am very weak. I need a little meat, soup. She gave me 3 coins. Today would be about 3 pennies. I went to a hotel where the chef cooked well. But my mother had given me only 3 pennies to buy soup with a piece of chicken. I tasted the soup. We did not have soup at home, and I savored the good taste. But she had given me only enough for 2 or 3 times. I needed for 1 to 2 weeks, but we did not have enough for that. I live on miracles. God returned my soul to me miraculously. I saw miracles several times. God showed me that He was allowing me to live. We were in great poverty and they accepted it with love and joy. My father and mother, oi, oi. I was born in Tveria, and I was the worst of all the children. I was born in a house with such poverty, more extreme than can be found anywhere. I did not have what I needed to live. Also, I was a weak child. It is a miracle I am still alive, that I was able to grow up. When I was somewhat older, all the children would wear beautiful new clothes for Passover, Pesach. But my father was blind. My parents had no money, and I did not have new clothes for the holiday. So my mother made old clothes like new. She washed and ordered them, and it made me very happy. When I came to the synagogue, all the children came with new clothes, and I came to synagogue like all the other children in beautiful clothes. Not new, but it was like new. My father was poor, and I did not have money. I was embarrassed to come to the Rebbe without money. That was his only income. On the first of the month, it was customary to come to school with money. All the children brought money to the Rebbe. I felt embarrassed. I went to the Rebbe without money. How could you think to come on the first of the month without money? So, such a thing was unheard of. It was hell. I went to school to the Rebbe without money. With every step, I felt hell. All the children came on the first of the month with money. Only I came without, the only student. The Rebbe said to me, what have you done? Why did you come? All month I wait for the first of the month. Now it's the first, and you come without money. This is my only income. On the first of the month, all the students bring me money, and so I have income. You are the only child that doesn't bring money. You didn't bring money? This was more than 100 years ago, and I remember it like today. He asked me, why did you come on the first of the month without money? What's this? Tell your father that on the first of the month, one must bring money. For me, this was a major thing. I tasted the taste of hell. How could I come to the Rebbe without money? I did not have any. The next day, I also came without money. Here's the story. I had always loved helping the poor. I very much loved the commandments. Even though I did not know much, I felt that the commandment of charity was a very great thing, a very holy commandment, very awesome. In Tveria, there was a very old man whose name was Rabbi Yosef Noach. He was poor, and he had a wife, and they lived in a room near me, in some courtyard. And he would go begging from door to door. There are poor people who do not go from door to door. They are poor, but they receive charity in a respectful manner. But he went from door to door, and I saw that he did this, so I felt much mercy for him. Who knows if he has enough to eat, even a morsel of bread. I remember his name until this day, Yosef Noach, 2 names, and it was the week when the Torah portion of Noach was read. I was born in a house with a degree of poverty not seen in the world, and a piece of bread was a treasure. Well, I was a good boy, and in the morning when I went to school to learn, my mother gave me a piece of bread, so I would have something to eat in the afternoon. Perhaps I would be hungry, and she gave me 3 drops of oil on the bread, making me very happy. I took the bread and asked her, Mother, give me a few more, two or three drops. It was a Thursday, so she screamed at me, I need the oil for Shabbos. All of the Shabbos is dependent on the oil. If I give you another drop, there won't be enough oil for the chulent. And you want another drop? Don't say a word. That is enough. So I wanted to practice charity and kindness. I did not have money, so I took the piece of bread, and when I went that morning to school, nobody knew, and I went to that elderly man, but he was not at home. I searched for him and found him, and gave him, and he took it from me. And I was so overjoyed that I had merited to do the mitzvah of charity. I gave him bread to eat. I wanted to fulfill the mitzvah of charity, to have mercy on the poor. So I went and happily gave him my bread with the drops of olive oil. I gave it to him. I thought that I had done a great charity. He and his wife would eat. It was Sunday, and I had already started to learn Chumash. The custom was that on Sunday, the Rebbe would say to the students, children, you know, this week's Torah portion is Noach. He said it several times, so that they would know that the portion was Noach. They understood that this week they were to learn the portion of Noach. Afterwards, he told them several headings from the required learning, several stories from the portion of Noach, the size of the ark, for example, so that in the study time they would already know some things. So we reached the time to eat. All the children came to school with bread and olive oil, and I had neither bread nor oil. I had given it to the poor man, and I was very hungry, and I could not concentrate on the words the Rebbe was saying. I was at the study table, but I was hungry and did not know at all what he was saying. What could I do? I could not receive. I was hungry. My head hurt me very much. I needed to eat and had nothing to eat. My body was naturally weak, and for my great weakness at the present time, I did not hear at all what he was saying, that this week's portion is Noach. He wanted to know which children were good and which were not good, so suddenly he stood and asked the child, tell us, what is this week's portion? And when the child knew that the week's portion was Noach, he was a good child. But there were children who didn't know, and they needed time in order to remember that the portion was Noach. He looked at all the students, and he perceived that I was not listening at all and did not know at all, as if I was not present. He came to me, yisroel, tell me, what is the portion of the week? I did not know anything, as if I was not in this world, as if in another country. So he waited with expectation. Perhaps I would remember, but I did not know anything. He waited for an answer, but there was no answer. I did not know. Then he asked me, where were you? You weren't here at all. What world were you in? What is this? I speak and give all the effort, and you don't listen? Then he beat me, yisroel, tell us which portion we are in. I was not listening, my head was hurting me, and I did not hear what he was saying at all. I did not know at all if the portion was Noach, if there was a Noach, if there was a Torah, if there was a portion. I didn't know a thing. Yes, I went through hell twice. I was hot. He was enraged at me. He was all elderly, and I was a child, and he hit me with such cruelty. What is this? I'm speaking for nothing. I said several times that the portion of the week is Noach, and you don't know even one word. You are not paying attention. You don't receive and don't know, as if you weren't here, as if there was no teacher. What is this? Where were you? I saw that I needed the bread, for I got hit and suffered, and I also had been severely embarrassed, being the only student who didn't know a thing. I was ashamed in front of all the students. He had not hit even one child except for yisroel. He hit me so hard with such cruelty, and the humiliation brought me more pain than the blows. From then on, I was always in pain and great fear. Perhaps the Rebbe would ask what will be receive screams and hits. Boy, when he asked was the portion week, I felt my heart jump. I thought I would lose my life, for I did not know what he was saying. Oy, oy. I said, today I will not keep giving my bread. Otherwise, I will be hit. I won't know that the weekly portion is Noach. Even though I gave bread to the poor man again. For me, this was all Judaism. Everything I had heard of spirituality, of faith, of the Torah, received new understandings that I had not had before, of God and the Torah. Even so, I gave the bread to him. For me, this was all of Judaism. Everything I had heard of spirituality, of faith, of the Torah, I reached new understandings that I had not had before, of God, Torah. There is a Torah, and there is a God. It gave me great happiness. I was very simple, and I had a great desire to be an upright person in truth, to serve God in truth, and to learn to pray. Especially in the years after my bar mitzvah, the war with the surge started, the sexual thoughts. I did not know what to make of it. Yes, who can relate? Who can I? I had difficult battles. Every blemish I fought with me like the most wicked person in the world. And I found no place for myself with God and with the Torah. No place. I found a place. I found no place. And I found a place for myself with God and with the Torah. And I found no place for myself with God and with the Torah. Precisely what I endured brought me, and I found a place for myself with God and with the Torah. Precisely what I endured brought me closer to God. I overcame, fought and said, I love God regardless what happens. I want to serve God, oh Master of the world, Master of the world. I prayed in synagogue, but I prayed with fervor, with faith, and with truth. I was exceptional in this. I appeared crazy. I truly screamed to the heart of heaven. Everyone screamed, for everyone who screamed louder was considered a greater chassid, more important, and I screamed louder than everyone. But my intention was not to gain importance or for some ulterior motive. My heart burned for God, and I shouted with such cries. And there was an elderly man who sat next to me. He had a beautiful beard. His name was Rav Kahos. His name was Rav Kahat. And I sat by him and cried, Give thanks to God, for He is good, for His kindness is everlasting. After the prayers, he would yell at me and cry, What do you want from me? Do you want to make me deaf so that I won't hear anything? Why do you scream with such cries? You are going to murder me. You will murder me. That is not a cry. That is a death blow. He was a Torah scholar with fear of heaven, but he could not bear the cries. He suffered much pain from this. His condemnation and his anger. I remember it as if he were standing beside me today and screaming, What do you want from me? Who can imagine? Who could describe? I was always depressed, broken, but this was in fact a very good thing. My broken drew me to God, to the it was for good. I longed. I had longings for God. I was embarrassed. I thought I was the only one with an evil inclination. Only I had lusts, and everyone else was pure. I did not know what other people went through, so I said, all the lusts and all the troubles, everything, I have it worse than anyone else in the world. I did not know that others also have an evil inclination. But thank God, God did miracles for me, and that I merited to come to Rabbi Nachman, and merited to understand, to see and to feel that this is Judaism. This is the Torah. But I did not have someone to guide me. I did not have Rabbi Nachman. I did not know from him. Afterwards, when I merited to come close, then I knew. I did not know what I know now, but with every bit of knowledge I received, in which I merited to feel truth, I felt, whoa, this is such truth. There is nothing like it. There is nothing like it. When I drew close to Rabbi Nachman, I traveled to Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is a city of Torah scholars, giants, great tzaddikim. But as for Breslov people, everyone spoke of them as if they were wicked, pathetic. But every word I heard from Breslovers, I felt such truth from it. I saw and understood. God gave me wisdom to understand. I saw Rav Naftali Cohen. He was a very wise and intelligent man. He was a contractor. He could build large houses, and he built a synagogue. I asked him for advice on what to do with the evil inclination. He liked to speak with me. He saw my simplicity and truth, and he liked me very much. But there was a great distance between us. He was already elderly and a Torah student, and I was a simple man. He would speak with me. He did not like to talk a lot, but there was a holy wisdom in his words, and he imbued me with a new spirit flowing from Rabbi Nachman. He enlightened me with a great light to be able to distinguish between false beliefs and Rabbi Nachman, until I merited to understand the matter of false beliefs. For if I had not understood, I would have had a bitter pain in my heart. I felt I had a defect in my heart, a blemish. What should I do? And thank God, God helped me through the words I heard from the Breslovers in Yerushalayim. They gave me comfort and salvation. They gave me comfort and salvation and comfort. The truth stands in opposition to the whole world. Everything is really the opposite of what it seems. I said to myself, who do you think you are? What do you know? What do you understand? But the truth God descends down to the level of Yisroel Bear as well. I was happy with my lot, that I merited to feel, to see, and to understand what was true and what was false. It was a time in which the entire world was immersed in falsehood, and I merited to see the opposite. It did not bother me that they were the majority and great in Torah learning. No, the truth is strong, a strong champion without parallel. Every word I heard from Breslovers, Rav Nassan, the second husband of Gittler, who married her after the passing of Rav Yisroel Kaduner, his simplicity and truthfulness, his words and face, I saw that all the others, with their Torah and all, were as nothing compared to Rav Nassan, who truly served God. I was in Yerushalayim and heard a few words from one and a few from another. It all entered into my heart, and I returned to Tveria with new merchandise, new melodies, and a new Yisroel Bear, not the Yisroel Bear from before. Then everyone knew that Yisroel Bear had been in Yerushalayim. It was a miracle from God, above nature, impossible to understand. I was born amongst Torah Jews, and I knew what was fear of heaven. They all had a false reputation and an image of fear of God. But God gave me the wisdom and intelligence to discern, know, see, and understand the truth. But God gave me the wisdom and intelligence to discern, know, see, and understand the truth. Without the controversy, without the opposition, I would not have known from Rebbe Nachman at all. What my eyes saw specifically due to the opposition, specifically through the controversy, I merited to know these things. Without the controversy, I would not have known. Through it, I found out what is Rebbe Nachman, what is breslov. That is what made me breslov, the conflict and the opposition. Specifically this, drew me close. Yes, I want to speak, to recount, but this is something beyond our grasp. Who can speak? Who could describe or imagine what I saw, especially what I did not see fully? These were precious gifts. Rabbi Nachman said, I brought you a gift from the land of Israel. Conflict. All the world will oppose me, and then whoever will nonetheless come close, he will be one of my people. It was a gift that cannot be found in all the world. Now, if you were to give all the money in the world, it would not help. The opportunity has already passed. But even today, the Mashiach still has not come, and the truth has not been revealed that much. But the world is beginning to listen and understand the matter of Rabbi Nachman. All the days of my life, righteous Jews were afraid to touch a book of breslov. Today, one can buy books of breslov any place. I had questions against God. If the truth were to be revealed, the world would already be in a state of repair. When will it happen? How is it even possible? And now I see, from before 80 years until today, I see such a force. The world is being drawn to Rabbi Nachman. It would have been more expected that the world would retreat from breslov, for all the leaders were against it. Yet we see such a wonder has happened. Oh, what breslov Hasidim endured. I was crushed and broken in submission. But in my heart, the truth burned like a bonfire. It was a miracle. In Tveria, among the Hasidim, when someone did a good deed, practiced charity and kindness, he would become important in the town, and he would be called a tzaddik. Everyone was playing the game. He was not playing. He was thought of as a servant of God, a righteous man. So, he was not playing games. Laughing, maybe. Everyone was laughing, meaning laughing at me. I think that's what it says in the original. Everyone was laughing, but he was not laughing. He was thought of as a servant of God, a righteous man, so he was not playing games. He was not laughing at me. But even so, in his heart, he would not be opposed to breslov, for he could not change the world. Only the truth can stand in the face of the whole world. Oh, master of the world. One time, a major leader of a famous Hasidic group arrived at the yeshiva of Rabbi Meir Balanes, where I was learning. He entered into the cave, and all the Hasidim that were with him, all of them saw that he was there in the cave, and they were saying, "Who knows what is going on there in the cave?" Everyone came toward him to honor him, but I did not go out. Thank God I had holy arrogance. Everyone came toward him to honor him, but I did not go out. Thank God I had holy arrogance. I saw there were great leaders, masters of Kabbalah. They had fear of heaven, and I went to them. One time, I went to Rav Leishke. He was very old. He was greater than the others, and he liked me. I came to his house, and he received me with love. but he was opposed to breslov. This was already after I merited to come closer of Yisroel and had endured all types of humiliation. Then Rav Leshke said to me, if you feel that this endows you with fear of heaven, faith, and the keeping of the Torah, don't listen to any rabbi or anyone in the world. That is what he said to me, but privately, not in front of other people. This was by the Kinneret Sea, next to the mikveh, and we were the only ones there. He did not tell me not to reveal to anyone that he had spoken thus. He simply did not say it in front of other people. He knew that I would not reveal it. What would I gain by it? Thank God, that gave me a lot of encouragement, being that he was from their side, the side of the opposers. But he had some spark of truth. He recognized that I was searching for truth, so he told me such words. There were miracles and wonders greater than the exodus from Egypt. How I managed to free myself from everyone. I girded myself with strength and might. And everyone fell from this. They saw my determination, and they fell. Everyone was against me, and I suffered such lowliness and humiliation. Yet these were precious gifts. Precious gifts. ממון. ממון.